Just like Marvel movies lately, this video had to go through a bunch of different directions, a bunch of scripts and reshoots. So its late, has been postponed, and it's been weeks since the announcement, but at least the video will be better, right? Well, maybe. But to be fair, the original video was too robotic and the news kinda sad, and I'm just looking back on it and can't stop laughing at how much of a mess the situation actually was. In a way, I'm glad it's over. I love it when I can mentally move on from stuff. So given the not so surprising outcome, I just kinda thought Deadrop would have longer legs. The idea behind it was on point, and I do say that with a lot of reservations, but at the time of its original inception, there was no real competition for a simplistic BR/extraction. Sure, you had your Arena Breakout and Tarkov, but those shooters are quite complex, and it takes a while for people to learn them and enjoy them to their full potential. Deadrop was unique, but for all the wrong reasons, and though it may have struggled with its identity later on, and we'll get to that, it was fun for what it was at the start. One of the main aspects people can't forget about is the NFT part of it, which in their defense, I get it. I do personally see it more of a token that allowed us access to the pre-alpha and gave us voting rights. Think of it kind of like the early beta test for Battlefield 2042, but without the ability to refund the turd. Everyone, even your nan, saw this as a crypto game, and we all know how hard it is to convince grandma to make a crypto investment, right? Right, so I'm buying a photo on the internet? Yeah, grandma, yeah. Every crypto bro wanted a piece, and even though the applications to get in were kind of vetted, it didn't help that the initial thinking founders weren't all here to help. Going forward, it was a common misconception that this was an NFT game, which it wasn't. Behind the scenes, we had extensive talks if we want the items to be generated on the blockchain, and we kept hitting the same wall. We, the community, said no, we don't want that shit, and they let go of the idea, thank f. This is probably wait, has it been 30 seconds? This is probably the only time they actually listened to our feedback, but it wasn't enough to let everyone else know that this isn't a piece of garbage NFT game. Never will be, and cheaters won't be able to make millions deleting normies and stealing their pixels. The second thing that was propped up a lot was the vertical aspect of it. Now, there is a reason why vertical shooters, at least in a competitive sense, don't exist. Our monitors being wider than they are taller, there are technical limitations on what you can see and how you can react to information. But it didn't exactly mean that the game would be dead on arrival. It's just something that companies have already realized developing this for so long, and here we have an amateur studio trying to break the mold. You know, I support this. Let's try it, tone it down after a while if it proves too difficult or nauseating. Maybe a new strategy would appear where you tilt your monitor 90 degrees playing the game. You never know because no one ever tried it. Oh look, I'm back to playing a normal shooter and I'm lying down. Whoa, win-win. It's just generally agreed the shooter shouldn't be vertical. I found it enjoyable though, but to be fair, some of the angles were a bit too high and it's difficult to be accurate. But you know, every game has its drawbacks. And this is where Deadrop's uniqueness died. Luckily for the time when it was going from idea to product, the market was a bit scarce. Call of Duty dropped any kind of support for its extraction shooter, even though to this day, bar none had the best missions in the genre. Tarkov was going through an insane controversy, and Arena Breakout was known to be an insanely pay to win. This leaves us with Deadrop. Slots nicely into the lineup. It's simple, free to play, and being created with the community to shape it to perfection. Or so we thought. You made it through the intro, if we can call it that. Probably not since it's like 4 minutes done already. Anyway, here's my promise. 7 clearly shitty, and also kind of important, reasons why Deadrop suddenly, but not so surprisingly, dropped dead before it could be dead on arrival. That was a mouthful. I swear this was the original title. Anyway, let's get going. Midnight Society decided they wanted to be seen as a AAA studio. Nope. You can hire top talent, you can boast insane experience across the board, but what crucial thing was missing to this studio that every other AAA studio had is funding. Don't get me wrong, this studio had investors, but what they didn't realize until it was too late is that in order to bring a product to life, you need substantial funding from your own pocket. Midnight Society was not a AAA studio. They did not have the success of their other IPs they could fall back on if this project fails or has prolonged development. And as such, as much as they like to say it, it wasn't really true. Now we are gonna dive deep into the math of it all, so if you want to skip the boring math shit, go to some other timestamp. On the topic of funding, let's go over just how much Deadrop spent in the 3 years running and how much it was paid. They said it was over 55 developers working on the game. I'll just round it up to 60 because I failed at kindergarten math. Let's say all of them were seniors, which huge yaks to begin with, but let's keep it like that. A senior would earn a yearly salary of around 114k, but let's round it up to 120k, again because I suck at non-rounded math. And for the 3 years running, they sold merch, loot crates, passes, tower keys, and were funded by venture capitalists. A rough calculation would be 10k founders, of which 500 got the game for free, so that's 9.5k founders paying out 50 bucks. Luckily, this was already rounded for me. Then more rough calculating, since I can't access how many people are in the Discord server, I'll assume 5k people bought the tower key for themselves or their friends, which was like $25 a pop, but it was probably discounted to 20 bucks, so that's like 100k. And now if we go by industry standard, where 10% of the player base supports the upkeep for the majority, I don't really have any data to support this, but it helps the calculation, so just Trust me, bro. So let's say those 2% of the most dedicated players did this stupid shit and bought all the loot crates to get every item. Holy shit, that's a lot of numbers. It's a rough estimate, but 500 players buying 100 loot crates for $400, which would make another 200k, right? Probably correct. Now, if I add all this up without considering the small padding merch would add on top, this would be roughly 475k plus 100k plus 200k. So almost a million from players alone. And then on top of that, add their funding in as well of 35.1 million, which we can round up to 36 million. Now let's stupidly assume it's equal shares, so 36 million divided by 60 developers and divided by 120k yearly salary. This would get us to 5 years of development, which means by these rough estimates, the studio would close down 2 years early. So why the hell did the studio run out of money? Did they pocket the 14 million left over? Was it the poorly managed resources? Or could there be something bigger? We'll get to that in a minute. The game from Snapshot 5 onwards, which was roughly 1 year into development, struggled with identity a lot. They wanted to make this fast-paced competitor to Call of Duty, they even made an event where streamers participated. Imagine that, a whole ass esports event for a game that isn't finished. Then they added racing, which was an absolute waste of development. I understand the doc had a vision for it, and honestly the novelty where you can race to the sector to get a better spawn was kind of fun, but it quickly ran super dry and boring. Another big offender for the identity of the game was their focus on UGC modes, more user-generated content. So much so, there were tournaments and prizes for those modes. Come on, what is this? I came here to play Deadrop, not to spend my time playing hide and seek in a blockout game. There was absolutely no need to focus on UGC. What the focus should have been spent on is creating engaging missions, tasks for the players to do, creating an enjoyable core gameplay loop that keeps players returning to play the game. It was always the same. They released an update, servers fill up for a day, and the game dies. Nothing to play for, nothing to have fun with, other than the same things we've experienced 6 months in development. And even though there was some development to the core gameplay later on, it was just too little too late, which perfectly ties into the next point. Maybe it's due to the lack of identity that shattered the belief, because in the end, none of the people believed this game would be worth anything. I found somewhere that MS reported an 85% completion of the game. You can't tell me 85% of the game was done and you just suddenly dropped the entire project because the funding ran short. Why not stick it out for the extra 15% and then offer stake to people that want to stay on board? I understand people have families to take care of, but if they had any belief this game is worth the development, I don't think any of the supporters would mind delaying development while people work on this part-time in their spare time for free, but owning equity. At least the game would eventually see the light of day. Now, before you get your pitchforks out, hear me out on this. With every introduction of a new snapshot, your entire stash got deleted. Everything you gathered erased, progress deleted. That's fine, it's necessary evil, but what bothers me about this is for a game that offers nothing, is in development and has no permanence, what the hell encourages me to play it? I just test it out real quick and then go back to whatever I was spending my time on before the update, right? Okay, fine. So why the hell are you selling me loot crates? This was the funniest shit ever. They sold loot crates before they were even in the game. You opened them on the website and they were there waiting for you in your inventory once you downloaded the new patch. So tell me how you can serve loot crates but can't create something small people can work towards for filling out the servers every day. I honest to God thought that would be the Visor Cortex chips you could collect and brag about who you killed for years to come. Nope. How about a skin that you would get upon launch if you completed a quest playing the core game? Also nope. Okay, then how about I not play this game? How about I treat this as a project in development? And how about you do not try to sell me shit until the game is at least in public beta? Like, do you guys see what I'm trying to say? There was nothing, absolutely nothing, but they treated it like a full-launched game that should get monetized. Midnight Society promised open development, information and updates on progress, including the supporters and their decisions, giving us a voice that would help shape the game, and yet 1 year after the first snapshot, it got real quiet real quick. Updates were far and few in between, they started doing stupid AMAs to fill in the blanks, and the snapshots were nowhere to be found. After rewatching my old video on this, that aged like fine wine by the way, I realized transparency was a huge problem even back then. Everything came late, information was scarce, and it all became about money for Robert. A couple of updates came in the next 2 years, but it's clear picture that this is no longer as promised, nor was it progressing the way it was planned. The cracks became public, but that was not the only thing that became public. The game was entirely based on Dr. Disrespect. The fan base, the ideas, the funding, they all came from Dr. Disrespect's image and brand. After the breakout of Doc's controversy regarding Accord, they removed Doc from the team. It was a quick and impulsive decision from Robert Bowling, who conducted an investigation of his own, which pretty much means he called Doc the allegations are true. And after that 5-second phone call, he decided to publicly remove Doc from the team, and the project died. 402 tried to save the company by disassociating it from Doc's brand, but what he failed to realize is that Deadrop is Doc, and with that decision publicly announced, lost, investors pulled out. The reasons why investors pulled out is not clear, but I assume it's either because they did not want to be part of the controversy, or they themselves lost any trust that the game would succeed without Doc. Half a year later, the studio shut down and Dr. Disrespect began thriving again on YouTube. Funny how that worked out. And now, because I'm good at this quasi-journalism shit, I have a little bonus for you because you came all this way. We can safely assume a rug pull, right? Nope, shockingly enough, in NFT terms, there was no rug pull. No last minute sales happened from the team, even though the price of NFTs crashed. My key takeaways from this is don't ever again buy a game that has not been officially released. This new age bullshit, develop as we go studios. Give me a game I can enjoy or leave my wallet alone. That's it. I don't really know how to end the video. So click this video. I guarantee you'll laugh at how well the video aged, or at least how bad I was at making it.
And it's only gonna work if we all call bullshit when there's bullshit.